At last, my follow-up to the Fiio DM15 portable CD player. I wanted to come back sooner with an update, and I do apologize. I've been under the weather, and I'm also in the process of preparing for another certification exam, so I've been quite busy, plus I haven't been feeling well. For most of the month of February, I didn't use the CD player that much. On occasion I did. I didn't feel that I had enough time with it to give an honest review. So, now that it's the end of March and I've had quite a lot of time to spend with it and determine what my likes and dislikes are, what I love about it and what I do not love about it. So, without further ado, here is my review update of the Fiio DM15 portable CD player. So, we'll start with some of the things that I love about this particular CD player. You're probably wondering, gee, well, she still has the screen cover on. Well, I like how it looks. I like the contrast between the silver and the blue. It gives it a Y2K aesthetic because a lot of electronics from that era, from that time period, had this color scheme. And I like it. I know eventually this will probably wear off, so I'm not sure how long it's going to last. If the strobe effect of the CD spinning, if that bothers you, having the blue screen cover on reduces the strobe effect. So if that's something that you do not like looking at or noticing about it, this definitely helps. And it looks nice too. So feel free to keep it on if you like how it looks, like me. Well, my listening experience with this player has been wonderful. When listening to this player, I feel as though I'm not listening to a CD or even a digital source. It has a warmer sound to it, which makes it sound more analog than digital. There are certain elements to the music, if I'm listening to something that's familiar, there are certain elements that I'm hearing for the first time that I did not notice before. So, it's kind of like listening to it for the first time, even though you're listening to something familiar that you've grown up listening to. So that is something else that I love about it. This definitely does sound better than your average CD player. So that's nice. So let's move on to the build quality. I love the sturdy build quality of this player. It has an all aluminum chassis, which is nice. Even the knob here is made from metal, so it's quite nice. It isn't a heavy metal, it's more of a lighter aluminum or titanium maybe metal. I like that it has auto shut off. If you have not pressed any buttons or operated the unit within a certain amount of time, it's probably, I'm not sure, maybe a few minutes, it'll automatically shut off, which is very handy and saves the battery. And the memory is great because you can turn it back on and it goes back to where you left off, as most CD players nowadays do have. I wish that, well, I don't know, this could be a negative or a positive, but say you want to change CDs and listen to something else, and then you put the original CD back in there, it's going to start it from the beginning. But could you imagine if it actually recalled where you left off the last time you listened to a particular CD? Well, maybe that wouldn't be such a great feature to have, so we'll have to edit that out. I love the portability of the player, even though it's not something that you would probably want to work out listening to. It's something that you would want to keep protected. You can also use this as a desktop unit, and I use it as a desktop unit sometimes as well. And if I'm walking with it, for example, the anti-skip feature that most CD players do have now, this has not skipped on me, not once. So that's definitely something that you can also consider, and that makes it more portable, even though you can use it as a desktop unit. And speaking of portability, there is a case for this CD player that fits it perfectly, that's sold separately. And it fits the unit pretty well. I think these flaps here are magnetic, so it holds the CD player. It even says Fiio. It has Fiio embossed on the back. I don't know if this is made from leather or if this is vinyl, but it definitely feels premium. It feels good in the hand. It's very snug. So if I'm going out for a walk, I always have it in its case. And what's really nice about this player's case is that it does include a carrying strap that comes with the case. And all you have to do when you're connecting it, these little hooks here just hook on to this part. Sorry, I don't know if you can see very well, but it's very easy to figure out, so don't feel intimidated by it. All right, there we go. Yep. This holds it very well, and like I said, even though the unit is in its case, it has never skipped on me once, so the anti-skip is perfect. And I think the best way to wear this, if you're out and about and you're using the case to protect it, is to wear it across your chest like this. I find that wearing it on your shoulder like this, it feels as though sometimes if you're speed walking that it's about to slip off. You want to protect your investments, so I suggest wearing it across your chest like this. And the case even has the back port display exposed too. So if you need those connections, you can, it's fully functional in its case. The only thing you cannot do is change out a CD. You have to lift up on this, open the top part, whoops, to change out a CD. And you can open this like that. It'll open and close. So yeah, it's very handy. So if you're using it as a portable unit, I highly recommend getting a case for it because it'll protect your CD player. It does not protect the front display panel. I wish it did. That would have been really nice. You still have a lot of protection protecting the player, and it's very easy to carry. The case colors that are available are the red. It's like a dark red, burgundy maroon shade. There's also an orange shade, a bright orange, and a black, I believe. So you have 3 color options if you want to choose the case. I haven't seen many videos where people are mentioning the case, but it does come with the case. So this can be used as a portable unit or a desktop unit. You have those 2 options. I like the portability of it. I use it sometimes if I'm going out for a walk. Never tried to run with it, and I don't think I'd ever be brave enough to do that. If you'd rather use it strictly as a desktop unit, you can do that as well. And it even has a desktop mode button on the back that bypasses the battery and allows you to power the unit through electricity and saves your battery life. And you can even use that in your car too, believe it or not. I try to use desktop mode if I'm listening to this in my car. I do find myself sometimes, or quite often, reaching for my Klim Nomad CD player, which is more inexpensive compared to this. If I'm listening to a book on CD, I'll usually listen using this CD player because I'm not as concerned about audio quality. Whereas if I'm listening to music, I'd rather listen on this one. But I still listen to music on this player too. But this is the player that I usually listen to in my car because the buttons are larger and it's easier to see them. The buttons, as you know, aren't as large on here. They're teeny tiny. So yeah, this one still does get used quite a lot too. I love that this unit does include a remote controller, which is here. The battery is sold separately, but the batteries, surprisingly, for the remote are not as expensive as I thought they would have been. I bought it from Walmart, and just make sure you're getting the correct size because I had to return it the first time I bought it because I by accident picked the wrong one. It was in the wrong place. That's how I ended up choosing the wrong battery, wrong size battery. And I was trying to fit the battery into the little slot and realized, wait a minute, this is the wrong size battery. So please be wary of that. So this is the remote control. And yes, the buttons on here are quite small too. But it's easier to control the unit with the remote control if you're, say, in your car or if you're away from the unit while listening to it. It would have been nice if the buttons on the remote were backlit. That would be a nice feature. You could actually see the remote's buttons in the dark. My only issue with the remote is that it does not include a power button, which is strange, and every person on YouTube who has reviewed the CD player has not mentioned that. Maybe there is a way to turn on the unit using the remote, but as far as I can see, there's no way to actually turn the unit on just from the remote. And that's strange because most remote controls do include power buttons. So you're forced to interact with these teeny tiny buttons here in order to turn on the unit. And what I like about this player, unlike the Klim, my Klim player here, this player, if you use the back buttons, it returns back to the beginning of the song like most CD players do. But with the Klim player, it'll take you back to the previous song, and I've never liked that about it. So let's move on to my dislikes. So these are the things that I dislike about the Fiio DM15. Let's start off with the obvious, the teeny tiny buttons here in the front. You know, if they had included the power button to be controlled from the volume knob just by pressing on it, I think that would have been a better design. That would have left them with more real estate here to include larger buttons here. Even the EQ could strictly be controlled. The EQ function can be controlled with the volume knob. I think that would have been a better design. That would have left them more room to include larger buttons, but they chose not to do that for some reason. But having the remote does help with that a little, even though the buttons on the remote are pretty small too. And the EQ settings, I find, are not that great. I never use them when I listen to music. I'll test them out just to see how they sound, but I always find myself going back to having it off because it sounds better. I do use the bass boost function. It's called Magic Bass on the CD player sometimes, but not all the times. It all depends with the CD that I'm listening to, the genre of music, even the headphones that I'm listening through that determine whether or not I have the bass boost feature on. Rarely will I have it at 2 all the way up, max. I usually have it on level 1 if I'm using it. But I find that if I'm listening through my Koss Portapro headphones, I'll usually have the bass boost on the first setting. It's hit or miss with my Soul Republic headphones. Sometimes I'll have it on with them, and sometimes I will not. The same goes for my Audio Technica headphones. Sometimes I'll have it on, sometimes I won't. But it's a nice feature to have. So I haven't used Bluetooth through the headphones because I prefer to listen to this unit the old school way. I did use the Bluetooth function with a boombox, and I connected it to a Bluetooth boombox, and it sounded quite good. I was actually impressed with how great it sounded through the boombox. So Bluetooth does work. Sometimes it has a little trouble pairing, I found, with different devices, at least in my experience, but it does work. So if you want to use that function too, if that's a selling point for you, it's definitely something that it does have. So the flimsy door, I do not like because this door is glass and it can easily break if it's shatters or shuts too hard. Luckily, I have not had that problem, and I'd like to think that having the screen cover on it does absorb some of the shock if the door were to slam. But the door doesn't slam that often because I've become accustomed to the player. So I'm able to just kind of let it gently shut itself with the magnet. And when loading a CD, I noticed that it seems to take a while to load a CD compared to other players. That's not a big problem for me, but I've noticed that it takes a while to load a CD. So something else, if you use the aux output, this output port on the back, I thought that this was a true line out, and it could be. I still have to rely on the volume knob and adjust it from there when using this output port. I thought it was a true line out where I didn't have to control the volume from the unit. Instead, I can control it from the stereo or player that I'm connecting to, the radio. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Maybe I'm using it wrong. I don't know. So the battery life on this player does seem to be rather short, I've noticed. I don't feel as though I'm getting the maximum amount of battery life from the unit. It does last quite a while, but I don't know, it just doesn't seem like what they've advertised it for. I believe it's 10 hours playback. Could be less, but I don't feel like I'm getting that much listening time out of it. Considering I don't use Bluetooth, very rarely will I use Bluetooth with this. And I've already mentioned the remote controller not being backlit and not having a power button. Fiio, you should have included a power button with the remote. You're forcing us to turn on the CD player with these itty bitty tiny buttons, which is not good. So on the back of the unit, this is another dislike that I have. There are no screws, and I don't think there are any underneath the feet either. So when the battery finally gives up, there's no way to easily open it. You'd have to find a way to pry open the player to get to the battery. So that's something else that I do not like. And another dislike about the line out is it seems as though the volume is lower. And I notice when I adjust the volume, if I'm listening through a stereo, for example, I plug into a stereo, I have to turn the volume up pretty loud. And once it gets to 70 on the volume, they give you a warning to tell you the volume's, pretty loud, that you shouldn't listen to it at that level. Sometimes you need to in order to get a decent volume level for the music that you're listening to. I find that you have a lot of control over the volume, and it seems like in order to have it at a decent volume, you have to have it at a higher volume level to get a decent volume from the unit. I do appreciate that, with some units, you could turn it up just a little bit and it's loud. This unit is the opposite of that. Somewhere in the middle would have been better, I think, for me. And as for car listening, another dislike that I have is that the player does not interface with my car radio, unfortunately. So I have to control it from either the remote or the buttons on the unit, which is not fun. I tried everything. If you know how to pair this with a car other than Bluetooth, please let me know. Maybe Bluetooth might allow it to interface with my car, and I would be willing to listen to it through Bluetooth in my car if I had to. It's kind of an inconvenience that it doesn't interface with my car and I can't control it from the infotainment system on my car. I did buy this cable here thinking that this is I think it's a digital out cable. Those of you experts might know, but I tried connecting the line out through that, thinking I'd get a better sound, and it didn't work out that way. So I'm probably using this wrong. I think this is for connecting to an external DAC. But if you know anything about these cables, these types of cables, please let me know how to properly use them and if it's something that would work well in my car or if I'm using it indoors as a desktop unit. There's also a CD player out made by, I think the company is called Shanling, and the model for it is Easy C, the word 0, and the letter T. It also features an r2r DAC, just like the Fiio DM15. And I've tried to find some comparison videos because that CD player, it's also a portable. It sells for twice as much as this one. More than twice, I believe. It has tubes too. So I'm wondering if the soundstage on that one is better than this one. It probably is for that price, being, double what this one cost. But the Fiio DM15, it's a great unit. The Shanling CD player, I'm sure, is a great unit as well, possibly better. But they have two versions, one that features an r2r DAC and the less expensive option does not. But I noticed that for the Shanling CD player, the version that features the r2r DAC only comes in one color, which is black. The player that does not feature the r2r DAC, you have two different color options for the Shanling, which is a black or a silver, just like this one. So the Fiio CD player, the DM15, I love it. I'm satisfied with my purchase, and if you're in the market for a well-built, great sounding CD player and you're looking to get back into CDs, maybe you're just starting out with CDs, I wouldn't recommend this player for a child or someone who is rough with their electronics. This is more of a unit that you'd want to take care of and preserve and keep over the years and store in a safe place. So if you're buying this for a child, I probably would not recommend this one starting out. But if you're someone who's in the audio and you want to re-experience, your CDs on a great player that sounds great, I would definitely choose the Fiio DM15. It sounds great. The quality is there. It's well built, and you'll notice elements of the music that you did not notice previously for CDs that you've listened to before. However, some of the one CD that I bought back in 2005, this is during the time of the loudness wars, I noticed even on this unit that CD sounds slightly distorted. It's probably due to the mastering. It's a great album, but yeah, it sounds good on this one, but it still has that distorted sound to it. But my older CDs have a great, nice, warm sound, and I greatly appreciate that. So the Fiio DM15 portable CD player by Fiio, featuring the r2r DAC, is definitely a win in my opinion. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me your questions. And once again, I do apologize. I'm terribly sorry for not coming back sooner with a follow-up video. Please like, comment, and share the video. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, everyone. Happy listening.